I never thought a black maid could be my saving grace until she spoke up during a panic. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My heart raced like a caged bird, fluttering wildly, knowing that the silence around me could shatter at any moment. The air felt thick, suffocating. Each breath tasted like dust and dread. I stood in my kitchen, surrounded by whispers of uncertainty, my hands trembling as I fumbled with the jagged edge of the broken glass. Claire, my maid, stood there too. She was nothing like those I had met before. There was a magic about her, something elusive yet magnetic. Her presence filled the room. It was palpable. The way her sparkling eyes reflected the chaos around us made everything else fade into shadows. I had learned to ignore the sneers the world cast upon her. I had long stopped seeing her as merely an employee. No, she had become my anchor in a storm, the truest friend I never thought I'd find. But on that day, the storm raged too fiercely. The panic button blared like a relentless siren, drowning out all reason. Confidential files. Scandalous truths. They danced around me, swirling in a tempest of betrayal. I could hear the distant murmurs of my colleagues, each one more judgmental than the last. The tremors in my soul grew with their whispers. How did it come to this? I thought with disbelief. Claire's voice sliced through the chaos, low and resolute. You can't let them take everything from you. My heart skipped a beat. How could she see through the fog? I felt the weight of her words pierce my defenses. I took a deep breath, the cool air mingling with the heat of my shame, and for a split second, I found clarity. Yet, just as the ground beneath my feet steadied, a scream echoed through the house, high and agonizing. Was it a warning? A cry for help? In that moment, everything hung in the balance. What did Claire know? What secrets were buried beneath the surface of our fragile friendship? I could feel my pulse double, the chatter in my mind a cacophony of doubt and dread. Was I ready to confront the truth lurking in the darkness? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The shriek echoed in my ears, weaving its way through the chaos until it collided with my racing thoughts, snapping my focus back to the present. The sun hung low outside, casting long shadows that crept across the kitchen floor, and for a heartbeat, I felt paralyzed by the fierce grip of uncertainty. Claire's gaze met mine, her eyes piercing through the veil of fear that clouded my reasoning. It became clear that both of us stood at the edge of a precipice. One misstep could send us spiraling. Listen, Claire urged, taking a step closer, her voice barely above a whisper. No matter what happens, we'll figure it out. A sudden warmth spread through me at her unwavering confidence. It was a lifeline in the tumult, much like her earlier words had been, and I clung to it as desperation clawed at my heart. But what if the truth is more than I can bear? I confessed, my tone tinged with vulnerability. Communicating my fears felt risky, yet it was a chance I had to take. Claire seemed to ponder this, rubbing her temples, as if summoning strength from somewhere deep within. Every truth carries weight, she began, but some burdens are lighter when shared. And then, there it was, that glimmering hope in her voice, piercing through the lingering shadows. The thought of becoming truly vulnerable felt terrifying yet freeing. Before I could respond, another scream shattered the moment, this time, louder, more urgent. Without thinking, I dashed toward the sound. The spiraling offshoots of panic grew thicker as I raced through the hallway, the shadows leaping to life around me. I could hear Claire's footsteps following close behind, her determination unwavering. We burst into the living room, to find a scene that struck my heart like a fist. My youngest daughter, Lila, was huddled against the wall, her small frame racked with sobs. I knelt beside her, my instincts taking over. "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" I asked, urgency tinging my voice. "Mom, I heard someone say something bad about you," she cried, her little face streaked with tears. They said you're going to lose everything." Lila's words tore into me, echoing the very fears I had been grappling with. She had overheard someone, perhaps a neighbor, perhaps a bitter colleague. In this vulnerable moment, my instincts screamed at me to shield her from the realities of the world outside. But in doing so, I felt an even heavier weight settle in the pit of my stomach. Lila shouldn't have to bear such burdens. I held her tightly, heart racing, trying to sift through how to mend her fears, while fitting my own convoluted puzzle pieces together. "No one is taking anything from us," I said, forcing a dash of confidence into my tone that I did not fully believe. "I promise you, we're going to be okay." Claire knelt beside us, her large, gentle hands enveloping Lila's tiny ones. "And you're not alone, Lila," she added softly, her mere presence a source of comfort. The world might have tried to cast her aside, but in that moment, she was a beacon of love. As Lila finally settled into silence, lulled by Claire's comforting touch, I stole a glance at my friend, whose own voice trembled slightly as she spoke. "We'll tackle this as a team." Her radiant determination, even in the direst of circumstances, ignited something deep within me. But just then, out of the corner of my eye, I spotted something glimmering on the Kuchaw folder, eerily familiar. It was filled with documents I had thought were safely locked away. My breath caught in my throat. What were they doing out here? What had Claire seen, or perhaps what had she done? "Claire," I started, but the tremble in my voice bore the weight of 1,000 questions. Had our friendship been built on a foundation of faith, or had her actions masked a duplicitous agenda all along? She turned to me, her expression unreadable, and for the first time, I sensed a crack in the veneer of our camaraderie. The shadows began to swirl once again, around us both this time. I swallowed hard, realizing that the real fight had only just begun. The chatter of my thoughts grew louder as I glanced between Lila and Claire, overwhelmed by the confusion that clung to the air around us, thick as fog. My heart raced, not only from the fright of Lila's tears, but also from the nagging doubts that slinked through my mind. The documents rested there like a dark omen, threatening to unleash new chaos into an already precarious moment. "Claire, what's that folder doing out here?" I spoke again, the weight of my fear translating into strain on every syllable. She hesitated, and that pause felt like a blade drawn slowly, meticulously. The trust one had placed in her began to crack under pressure. She started, looking down, but the words seemed to get tangled up in the tension thickening the air. I was going to explain, but what? But why were you hiding this from me? The silence stretched between us like a chasm, each second drawing the shadows closer. Lila's eyes darted from Claire to me, her small fingers still entwined with Claire's, seeking stability in the storm. I felt my stomach twist, torn between the urge to protect my daughter and the instinct to protect myself from the dark reality looming ahead. "Mommy?" Lila's voice was small, a plaintive note in a symphony of uncertainty. "Are we going to be okay?" In that moment, hope felt elusive, mocking me from just out of reach. "Of course we are, sweet girl," I replied, my tone soothing yet fragile. But deep down, I feared I was merely deflecting her innocence away from the truth that felt sharper than any knife. Claire took a collective breath, her eyes reflecting deep empathy. "Look, I didn't mean for you to find out like this. I thought I was protecting you." Her voice, though earnest, tremored at its edges, suggesting there was so much more layered beneath her words. "Protecting? Is that what you call this?" I barely recognized the anger that surfaced, the dismay that surged through my veins. You can't make decisions for me, Claire. If there's a storm brewing, then I deserve to know it. Lilith's grip tightened on Claire's hand, and a flicker of fear danced in her eyes. I willed myself to soften, to take a step back, but it was as if an avalanche of swirling emotions was about to bury us all deep. Then, a soft rap on the door broke through the tension, and we all turned at once. My heart leaped in rhythm with my pulse as I moved toward the sound, praying for a welcome distraction from the unraveling emotions in the room. With every step, the impending dread nestled deeper within me like an unwelcome guest. Opening the door, I was met with an unexpected face. Someone I hadn't seen in months. Marie, the elderly woman from down the block. Her frail frame was wrapped in a coat far too big for her, and a basket filled with baked goods swung from her arm. "I thought I'd check in on you," she said, her voice soft like the warmth of the freshly baked bread wafting from her basket. "I brought some muffins." For a moment, her presence was like a balm, soothing the jagged edges of anxiety that had taken hold of my heart. "Thank you, Marie," I managed, stepping aside as she entered the living room. "It's good to see you." Lila jumped up, her sadness momentarily replaced by curiosity. "Are you a wizard?" "You brought muffins like magic," Marie chuckled, her smile brightening the somber atmosphere. "Ah, my dear, the only magic I have is in the kitchen. Now, what's the matter?" "You three look like you've seen a ghost." My smile faltered, uncertainty creeping back as I glanced back at Claire. How could I reveal the tempest we were in? How could I involve someone who had pulled away from the world, but whose warmth had always reminded me that not all was bleak, just some family issues? I finally replied, turning back to Marie, determined to keep the discussion light. "But these muffins will do wonders, I'm sure. Then let's eat," Marie said, moving with surprising agility for someone her age as she set the basket on the table. The scent of cinnamon and sugar wafted around us, igniting a much-needed sense of comfort. Yet, as I watched the two of them interact, a tightness remained within me. Was that folder still looming, its contents ready to explode at any moment? As Lila giggled at Mary's stories of her own childhood, my gaze drifted back to Claire. She had turned her eyes away, studying the flickering candles casting soft shadows across the room. What else had she hidden beneath that surface of a trusted ally? I felt a shudder of fear wrap tightly around me, and then silence fell heavy. "Marie," I started, ready to bring her into the worries I could no longer ignore. But before I could continue, the phone rang, slicing through the stillness, and I saw Claire's face drain of color as she recognized the caller ID. My breath hitched in my throat. "Is it him?" Claire asked, her voice barely audible, and I knew in that moment, whatever was about to unfold could irrevocably shatter the fragile peace I'd struggled to build. Deep breathing flooded the room, intertwining our fates more than I had ever anticipated. The phone rang again, its piercing sound shattering the fragile peace. All eyes locked onto Claire, the air thick with a palpable tension. I could see Lilith's innocence emblazoned on her face, unaware of the undercurrents swirling around us. "Claire, do you need to answer that?" I asked, more a suggestion than a command, feeling the stitching of our reality begin to fray. She reached for the phone, but her hand trembled slightly. She hesitated, and my heart pounded at the weight of what was unspoken. It might be it could be important. Marie, sensing the disturbance, leaned closer. "Is everything all right? You don't have to share if it's too personal," she said gently, her eyes wise and compassionate, a welcome reminder that there was kindness still remaining in such chaotic moments. Claire shook her head vehemently. "No, it's not that," she replied, her voice strained under the pressure of hidden truths. "It's just what?" I pressed, the urgency in my voice betraying my growing frustration. The volatility of this moment mirrored so many before it, and the recollection of pain clawed at my resolve. I tried to swallow it down, but I could taste the bitterness in my mouth. "Why don't we have a muffin?" Marie suggested, stirring a sudden shift in the atmosphere. Her resolve seemed to ripple through the room, softening the edges of tension. "They're really quite delightful. Baked them just this morning." But I could hardly focus on the muffins, the warmth of sugar and cinnamon lost in the tempest raging inside me. I cast a glance at Lila, her bright gaze drifting between us, searching for a lifeline amid the turmoil. I had to protect her, but from what? The untamable storm brewing in Claire's eyes, or the looming specter of whatever awaited on the other end of that line? "Fine," Claire finally muttered, almost distracted, before the ringing stopped. "It can wait." We shared a collective sigh, but just as quickly as it left, a renewed tension gripped the room. Marie, sensing the heartbreaking sincerity weaving through our interactions, stood, smoothing her apron, determined to lighten the moment more than ever. "I recently learned this recipe from a friend of mine," she began, pouring herself a cup of tea. "You know, sometimes it helps to talk about what weighs on you. It's like, let's say, a kettle. When you keep all the water inside, it builds pressure until it eventually bubbles over. But if you release just a bit, you can keep it from exploding. Wouldn't it be better to share?" I glanced at Claire, her expression morphing under the strains of Mary's wisdom, and there was something almost vulnerable about it. "Mary's right, you know," I said softly, with a rush of hope that this conversation would become the bridge we desperately needed. "We're in this together. Whatever this is, we can face it together." Claire looked at me, and for a moment, a flicker of gratitude crossed her eyes before it was consumed by uncertainty. "Okay." Her voice was barely a whisper, but it echoed like a drumbeat. "I promise I'll tell you everything, but—" She hesitated, biting her lip, horrible thoughts creeping back in. "If I do, you may not look at me the same way." The sincerity of her fear resonated deep within me, ringing like a clarion call of caution. "Try me," I urged, meeting her eyes with determination. Just then, Lila piped up, breaking the thread of our heavy conversation. "Mommy, can I have more muffin?" Her cheery voice cut through the dark clouds gathering overhead, and even Claire managed a shaky smile as if a small light ignited within the murky shroud. "Okay, sweetheart," I said, feeling the warmth shift slightly back toward us. But as I turned to retrieve the basket, my heart still raced, and I noticed something flickering in the corner of my eye. The only illumination in the room came from the wall clock. Seconds slipped away like grains of sand, but there was something else, something that felt off. Before I could pinpoint it, an unexpected knock echoed through the air once more, this time louder and more insistent. I froze, turning back toward the door. Claire's face was stricken, and I could see fear pooling in her eyes like rippling water on a still pond, disrupting what little peace we had managed to salvage. "Who is it now?" I asked, my voice laced with dread as I moved toward the door. I could feel Claire's unsteady breath on my skin, each inhale a desperate bid for control. When I laid my hand on the doorknob, something in my gut screamed caution. But I had come this far. I had to face whatever truth awaited me. With a swift motion, I flung the door open, and the figure before me sent a chill cascading through my veins. There he stood, a man I had never wished to see again, the one who embodied my worst fears, and the shadow of my past, that uninvited specter I thought was long buried, had returned with a smile that churned my stomach and sent dread spiraling faster than I could process. What was he doing here? And why did I feel the walls closing in again? The man remained in the doorway, his presence an unwelcome reminder of dark chapters that should have been closed. I faltered, the world around me narrowing to the space between us. Claire took a step back, her breath quickening, the tension flooding back into the room as unbidden memories clawed their way to the surface. "Hello, isn't this a surprise?" He stepped forward, the casualness of his tone belied by the gravity of his existence. I felt the air grow heavier, as if a storm cloud were manifesting above us. The tension between us all thickened, like molasses, slow and suffocating. "Get out," I managed, my voice steady yet laced with venom. He was the reason I had fought so hard to create a sanctuary for Claire and Lila. The very reason my past felt like a predator stalking me through junctures of my present. "Nice to see you too," he replied, a playful smirk dancing on his lips, as if he relished the discomfort he caused. The color drained from Claire's face, and I could see her mind racing, trapped in an arena she had tried to shield herself and Lila from. "Who are you?" Claire's voice was small, almost fragile, as if she expected him to break her with just a word. I stepped protectively in front of her, feeling the weight of her fear radiate. "You don't need to talk to him, Claire. You don't owe him anything." I shot the man a glare that held years of pent-up rage and sorrow all at once. "Let's not be hasty," he retorted, his tone dripping with condescension. "I'm just in town for a visit. Thought perhaps I'd catch up with some old friends." His gaze shifted to Lila, who peered curiously from behind my legs, blissfully unaware of the upheaval. "What a cutie you have," he added, his eyes darkening with appraisal. A cold shiver ran down my spine. "Leave. Now!" My heart pounded in a war drum rhythm, urging me to protect my family from this approaching storm. "Such hostility, I merely wanted to check in on Claire," he said, feigning innocence. "I mean, we do have some history, don't we?" Sickening memories encircled me like a noose. The secrets I had worked to bury, the darkness that had been my shadow for so long twisted in my gut like a vengeful spirit. "There's nothing left for you here. Just go!" I yelled, my voice cracking with suppressed fear, determination fueling me as I shielded Claire from a haunting past. Suddenly, the weight of Mary's quiet wisdom surfaced in my mind. This situation needed more than confrontation, it needed reassurance, firmness, and perhaps an unexpected shift in the narrative. "Lila," I said, lowering my voice to sound softer, catching my sweet daughter's eye. "Why don't you take Mary's muffins into the living room?" Lila nodded, oblivious to the danger that lurked beyond the door, and scampered away. Before she disappeared, I gently tousled her hair, stealing a moment of warmth before innocence stepped beyond reach. "It'll be right there," I called after her, turning back to the man, who stood firm, unyielding in his stance. "Honestly, you could let this be easier, you know." "I'm back, and things can change," he offered, his voice a mix of charm and menace. I took a step closer, driven by clarity. "The only thing that changes is that you're leaving. This is a safe place now, and you have no hold here." The air crackled with unspoken resolve, yet doubt crept in. What else would he do? What manipulations lay beneath his carefully crafted smile? Without warning, Claire moved slightly beside me, gathering her courage while searching for her own voice. "You don't understand how unimportant you are in our lives," she said softly, surprisingly steady for someone whose world had shifted so dramatically. "You don't get to come back in and pick up pieces of lives you shattered." He tilted his head, narrowing his eyes. "You think that's true? I know you both better than you think." And he paused, intentionally dragging out the moment. "There are things I could share, things you might want to hear." I felt Claire tense beside me, her fear palpable, her heart fluttering with uncertainty. "What do you mean?" she asked, though I could sense dread lacing her curiosity. My grip tightened around the doorframe, the vision of walls cracking under unseen pressure kindling a sense of urgency. For a fleeting moment, I caught a glimpse of that glimmer of hope. Perhaps we could push him away. Perhaps this confrontation could serve as clarity instead of torment. The coldness of his gaze sent chills over me. "Oh, just the truth about your dear friend Claire. About her past. It's quite fascinating." Really, he didn't even finish, but the implications hung heavy in the air, filling the silence with delicious horror. At that moment, Marie entered frame, her presence a sudden guide amongst the murky waters. "I think it's time for you to go," she said evenly, her voice calm yet commanding. There was a strength in her words, a reminder amid the tumult. But as Lilith's giggle echoed from the other room, a stark contrast to the tension at the door, I realized that Mary's bravery might not be the answer to this chaos. The foundation we had built was still all so fragile. As the man took a half-step back, something glinting in his eyes suggested he possessed secrets potent enough to sink us all. I needed to act, needed a choice, a chance to either grasp the life we had fought so desperately to reclaim or succumb to the past I never wanted to revisit. I locked eyes with Claire, and in that moment of silence, I knew we were teetering on the precipice of a revelation that could spiral everything out of control. "You have until the count of 3, I said, the words fierce, determined to erase any remaining doubts. 1, 2. But just as I prepared to confront him fully, the sound of the door creaking gently behind me echoed across the room, like a harbinger of unknown chaos, signaling the arrival of yet another uninvited variable that could alter the course of our lives forever. I never thought a black maid could be my saving grace until she spoke up during a panic. As the door creaked again, a flicker of movement caught my eye, and my pulse raced, anticipation mingling with fear. I spun around, bracing for whatever was about to unfold. A familiar figure stepped into the dim light of the hallway, an unexpected ally amidst the chaos. It was Clara, the housekeeper whose kindness had become a steady anchor in the storm of our lives. She shuffled in with her usual air of quiet dignity, her expression unreadable and calm in contrast to the turbulent emotions swirling around us. "Excuse me," she interjected, her voice soft yet carrying an unmistakable weight. The man's eyes flicked to her, curiosity mingling with contempt, as he sized up this new player in the game. "I think it's time for you to leave," Clara continued, her gaze unwavering. There was a command in her tone, a fortress of strength that bore the weight of countless years spent navigating the tides of those around her. "You have no place here." He chuckled, a sound laced with disbelief. "Who are you to tell me where I can and cannot be? This is just a reunion." His casual dismissal sparked a flare of anger in me, which slowly morphed into admiration for Clara's bravery. "You misunderstand," Clara responded, taking another step forward. "You may think you have a right to intrude, but your presence brings nothing but pain and fear." Her words dripped with truth, cutting through the tension like a knife. "You may not know it, but this house has seen enough darkness, and we will not let you cast shadows over it again." The man's bravado waned slightly under the weight of her conviction. I could see the gears turning in his mind, a flicker of doubt carving its way through the bravado. I felt a rush of warmth. Clara's words were a balm to the wounds festering within me. Yet, despite the warmth, I couldn't ignore the cold trickle of dread that wound its way back into my thoughts. What if his anger ignited into something more dangerous? What if he had a secret that would unravel everything we had built? The stakes had never felt higher. Claire blinked as she absorbed the bravery of a woman she had always regarded as simply the maid. But Clara was far more than that. She was a backbone of this home. Those simple moments watching her knead dough alongside Lila, or sharing frayed stories of resilience had solidified her role as part of our family, one that both Claire and I clung to in moments of uncertainty. "Clara," I whispered, "are you sure this is wise?" But she silenced me with a gentle shake of her head, her eyes focused and unyielding. "We can't live in fear. We must take a stand." The man's demeanor shifted once more, frustration leaking into his grin. "You really think a few warm words will scare me off? You should know me better, my dear." "Your words are empty," Clara countered, with an elegance that seemed to encase her every syllable. "You carry no weight here. Your presence is unwelcome because you stand against the peace we have found." With every heartbeat, an electrifying tension escalated, intertwining our fates, creating a cocktail of fear and resolve. It felt as though the room had narrowed even further, leaving space only for vulnerability and confrontation. Lila's giggle floated again from the living room, a stark reminder of everything that hung in the balance. The way Claire moved toward her, the cautious way she sought solace in the laughter of her child made clarity resonate anew within me. "Lila, sweetheart," Claire called, her voice rising slightly. "Why don't you come in here?" The flurry of her tiny feet soon scampered towards us, the innocent laughter unawares of the storm brewing just around the corner. But as she emerged into the space, her innocent joy painted a sharp contrast against the dark shadows looming at the doorway. "Look, Mommy! I found another muffin!" Lila shouted, her hands clutching the homemade creation like a trophy. Face alight with delight. I felt a surge of something powerful and urged to protect this light. Not just for Lila, but for Claire as well. This was more than a moment. It was a catalyst, one that could shatter the darkness that threatened to invade. "Why don't you go back to the living room and enjoy your treat?" I said tenderly, leaning down to meet her sparkling eyes. "Okay," Lila replied, and she bounced back towards the laughter, precious innocence that I was determined to safeguard. "See how easy that was?" the guy said, shaking his head as if we'd missed a vital battle in a war head already claimed was won. "You control your little girl's thoughts with muffins? What a sight to see!" Clara's expression hardened. "What she doesn't understand is how to keep away from a wolf in sheep's clothing. We know him, and we will protect this family." The man looked at Clara, and for just a brief moment, indecisiveness flashed across his face. But it vanished quickly, replaced by something darker in intensity that made my skin crawl. "Just remember, Clara, you all may think you live in a fairy tale, but I possess facts that twist the narrative. Secrets that could destroy what you painstakingly built." A gasp escaped my lips, and my heart dropped. The tokens of our fragile peace felt like marbles tipping off a high ledge, threatening a devastating spill that could splinter us all apart. What do you mean?" Claire's voice trembled slightly, and I turned to catch her gaze, confusion mingling with growing fear. He leaned closer, a predator lurking just outside the threshold. "Your family history is richer than you realize. I have layers to peel back, secrets to unveil. Would you not like to know the truth?" At that moment, the world outside seemed to shift. Time stretched into a menacing silence, and in that stillness, I felt the horrific pull that could flatten the sanctuary we had delicately created. "Point 3, I whispered, my heart racing, not for the countdown meant to eliminate him, but for the desperate longing to shield everyone I loved from the truth he held over us like a blade. It was electrifying, paralyzing. But as the final breath left my lips, a distant ringing resonated through the house, a furious chiming that echoed ominously through our fragile walls. It brought forth the undeniable grasp of fate, erupting into the room like a shattering glass, threatening to unveil the storm lurking deep within the shadows of our lives. What awaited us just beyond our threshold felt both terrifying and exhilarating. Everything was about to change, and I was left balancing on the edge of a revelation that could either bind us or break us forever. The ringing intensified, the sound slicing through the uncertainty like a knife cutting through fog. I couldn't pinpoint where the incessant clang originated from, but it felt like a death knell resonating within the very core of our home. I turned away from the looming figure and glanced at Clara's tranquil face, even as her brows furrowed slightly in concern. "Stay strong," she murmured, an oracle of peace amidst the growing chaos. But I felt the ground shifting beneath me, cracks appearing in the fragile world I thought I knew. I could sense the tension threading through the silence, tightening around my heart. The laughter in the other room had ebbed away, leaving behind a quiet dread thick enough to choke on. "Someone's here," I said, a tremor in my words as I longed for anything remotely resembling security. The haunting past he suggested loomed larger with every heartbeat, and I found myself grasping at threads of defiance. "Are you really going to let him speak?" Clara's determination vibrated in the air. "The truths he claims to hold can't hold power over us if we refuse to believe in their validity. But we must stand firm." The man, still leaning casually against the doorframe, had an unsettling grin plastered across his face. "You all have no idea what awaits on the other side of that door," he taunted, gesturing toward the entryway. "Think of me as a messenger bringing you news that could reshape your family in ways you never imagined. I would prefer peace over your twisted revelations, I shot back, trying to mask my quivering resolve behind a veneer of strength. The ringing persisted, drowning out my own thoughts as I battled against the fear creeping up my spine. If the only way forward involved peeling back layers of our past, what would that mean? How many truths lay buried, and did I even want to excavate them? Clara took a step closer to me, guarding my side, with a fierce conviction. "You will not intimidate us with your veiled threats," she declared, her voice steady. "We are stronger than you think." For the first time, I felt a tingle of hope amidst the uncertainty, a fleeting sense of empowerment in what felt like a losing battle. Clara's presence had rooted me deeper. She was not just a staff member, but a shield, one I had sorely needed, who pushed me from despair toward a whisper of courage. But the man's smirk twisted as he redirected his attention. "What's behind the door?" he asked, his voice low and sultry, as if invoking dark fantasies. What if the answers were waiting just outside? Wouldn't you want to know what's been hidden away for so long? Claire had taken a step closer to embrace the shell of her conviction, but doubt clouded her eyes. What are you talking about?" she stammered, desperately seeking clarity. He leaned in closer and whispered words that hung heavily like fog. "Family secrets. Undeclared burdens that could rewrite your entire history. Are you really ready to turn away?" Each accusation stabbed at the core of my being. I didn't want the past to overshadow our hopes for a future. Our family was fragile enough without adding layers of doubt. I risked a glance back toward Lila, who was blissfully unaware, her small existence a beacon of innocence glaring against the tumult. "Don't," I pleaded, desperation creeping into my heart. "Don't you dare bring the chaos here." The intensity of my plea spilled out. Lila deserves to grow up free from ghosts of the past. She deserves a safe family. The man's expression flickered at the mention of Lilith's name, glimmers of something else, anger, memory, perhaps regret shadowing his features briefly. "And what if I told you that she is already tangled in this very story?" "Stop!" Claire interrupted fiercely. "You're lying." But even as she spoke, the tremor in her voice reflected a fragile trust that faltered. "And oh, lies here," he snapped back, targeting the weak points. "Only truths. And want to know how I know? Because I've seen the paper trail of shattered lives that led to that little girl." Sickening dread churned within me. The rumblings of the past echoed violently, arming his words. With biting conviction, I grasped Clara's arm, drawing strength from her rootedness, praying fiercely that this man's words were nothing more than hollow threats meant to unsettle. "If you're going to ruin us, at least share the poisonous secrets you claim to know," I challenged, though my own fear gnawed hungrily at the edges of my resolve. The man's grin widened, and for a brief moment, his eyes sparkled with a twisted triumph. "Ah, the fire within you is delightful. Let's make a deal, shall we? You'll learn everything, but only if the past is brought to light tonight." Without thinking, I glanced once more at the door, the only escape from this nightmare, knowing full well that whatever horrors lay waiting beyond could either bind us in unity or unravel us irreparably. Clara tightened her grip around my hand, grounding me once more. "We control the narrative of our own lives. You will not dictate our story." But the clock was ticking down, and I could feel the weight of her words hanging heavily in the air, blurring my vision. Shadows whispered through the fingers of doubt as I stared into the man's dark eyes. And then the door swung open, revealing a figure I never expected in this tempest, a ghost from the past returning to claim its place in a narrative I had thought was mine to steer. The air chilled as realization struck like lightning. The twists and turns of our story had only just begun. The flicker of recognition and echo of lost time charged the atmosphere, the figure in the doorway casting a long shadow across the room. My breath snagged in my throat, my heart racing as the blend of disbelief and dread coursed through me. It was Anita, the woman who had once been a fixture in our lives, her presence a comforting constant in the chaos of my childhood. Yet here she was, a specter of the past re-emerging when I thought I had buried those memories forever. Anita? I managed to choke out, but it felt as though I were awakening from a dream, half hopeful it wasn't real. She stepped forward, defiance etched across her features. "It's been a long time," she stated, her voice steady but loaded with emotion. "But I'm not here to reminisce. I'm here to protect what should never have been threatened in the first place." The man's grin faltered, frustration briefly breaking through his facade. "And you think you, of all people, can defend this family?" His voice dripped with disdain, but his bravado wavered. "Yes," she declared, her gaze unwavering, squeezing the space between us with fierceness. "I know truths about this family that you can't grasp. Secrets that exist far beyond your reach." Her words hung in the air like a challenge, igniting a flame of hope I didn't dare to believe in yet. "Secrets?" I echoed, the weight of the word anchoring me in my uncertainty. "What do you know?" Anita flicked her eyes toward me, a storm brewing there, but her resolve remained unbroken. "Secrets that bind us together, but also threaten to tear us apart. There's more to Lila than you realize, and you have to understand. Her safety depends on facing what's lurking beneath the surface." The man shifted nervously. "And what secrets do you hold that would protect you from this? Do you think I'm just going to let you waltz in here, play the hero, and act like you know anything about the truth?" She approached him with slow confidence, an ember of courage igniting as she continued, "You think you can manipulate their fear to make them acquiesce? You're wrong. Family isn't just blood. It's about loyalty and love, the very concepts that you're trying to destroy." Tension filled the cramped space, and Clara, still clutching my arm, exuded a shared fervor and unshakable belief that together we could face the storm. I was anchored by their fire, the thought of Lila tugging insistently at my heart. "What do we do?" I spoke softly, almost as a prayer, uncertainty still creeping at the edges of my resolve. Anita met my gaze, her expression gradually softening. "We stand together," she said. "No more hiding from our past. If it takes unveiling the darkest corners to ensure Lila's safety and your peace, then we dig deep, we excavate, we confront, and we protect." The man laughed mockingly, his voice a low growl. "And the truth, in its glorious revelation, will free you? It will make you strong?" Oh, how naive! The room held a collective breath, and my heart thundered at the thought of dredging up everything we had long pushed aside. But I felt Clara's presence reaffirming my resolve, reminding me that our story had moments rich with warmth, love, and light beyond the horror this unknown figure offered. With a sudden shift, the threat loomed closer, his voice dripping with challenge. "You think you have everything under control? The truth is coming for you, and it will tear your fragile little family apart." And then, as if to punctuate his words, an unexpected thunderous crash erupted from outside, shattering the fragile tension that saturated the air. All of us jumped, adrenaline surging as we realized it wasn't just the haunting past clawing back at us, it was an impending storm. "What the hell was that?" Clara gasped, jerking her head towards the window. Anita's expression shifted, now painted with urgency. "We need to move. If he can find you, then he's not the only one who knows about Lila." "Lila!" I shouted, panic rising within me. I turned to look for her, desperate to shield her from whatever danger our secrets had summoned. My heart frantically clawed at the possibility of losing her amidst this unraveling world. "It's not just about us anymore," Anita said, almost pleadingly. "If we don't act now, it may very well be too late." And then, the door burst open further, revealing not just the man, but a flicker of movement behind him, a woman who was just as familiar as Anita, her face a mirror of the shadows from my memories. This time, however, hope splintered in two different directions, and as she stepped into the light, my heart plummeted into an abyss of confusion and dread. The room echoed with tense chaos, and all at once, everything I held dear hung precariously in the balance, teetering on the edge of revelation. Just when I thought the storm had reached its peak, I realized that it was merely the beginning. The chaos that erupted in the room swallowed me whole. The familiar face behind the man was unmistakable Lydia, my childhood friend shoved to the back of my memories, buried under layers of time and hurt. Standing there, framed by the mayhem, she represented a collision of past joys and present horrors. Her eyes darted between Anita, the man, and me, an unfinished story written long ago, resurfacing in a way I never anticipated. Lydia, I gasped, the name forcing its way past my lips. What are you doing here? Is that how you greet an old friend? She said, her voice tinged with an acidic edge that scraped against the remnants of shared laughter from long ago. Or did you forget me too, like everyone else? Anita moved closer to me, protective as ever, her glare fixing pointedly on Lydia. We don't have time for this. She's not here to help. But Lydia stepped forward as if emboldened by Anita's distrust. I'm not here to cause trouble, but maybe you need to listen. Her gaze flickered back to the man whose grin had returned to taunt us. You think he's the only one who knows everything? None of us are free from those secrets. You think I'd come here unless I had to? What do you mean? I asked, my brain scrambling to catch up with the torrent of emotion flooding my heart. The truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how you try to bury it, even when it's painful. Her voice softened, revealing a vulnerability I hadn't expected amidst the tension. There's something I need to tell you something about Lila. Something that's tied to us all. The man sneered, You're wasting your breath, Lydia. Move aside unless you want to feel the consequences of your loyalty. Ignoring him, Lydia's gaze locked onto mine, her expression earnest. This isn't just about you, me, or any of us from the past. Lila deserves to know who she truly is. What binds us all, or else the shadows will consume her completely. There was a weight to her words that grounded me, and yet they unraveled a thread of fear too. What do you mean? I demanded, the urgency in my voice almost frantic. It felt like the walls were closing in, the truths I had avoided clawing at my consciousness. Before Lydia could respond, Clara stepped forward, her voice trembling but resolute. What are you saying? How can it concern all of us? Her question lingered in the air, suspended like the breath I forgot to take, while the man's irritation boiled beneath his calm exterior. This is pointless. Just let me handle what has to be done. You don't need to taint the girl with your stories. She can stay safely hidden. Safely hidden? I seethed, my pulse racing. Not forever. If she's kept in the dark, how can she ever be truly safe? Without warning, the tension snapped, igniting a burgeoning crisis that surged like a storm outside. Outside, flashes of lightning followed by the cracks of thunder echoed ominously, as if the world mirrored our internal dread. The truth is what keeps her safe, Lydia insisted, stepping closer to me, though fear flickered in her eyes. I know what happened the day everything changed, the day that tore us apart. What could you possibly know? You left. I left because I had to, because things were getting dangerous. But I always looked back. Her words hung between us, twisting, creating the slightest opening for the hope I didn't dare to trust. What happened? I pressed, desperate now, hatred for the man in the room simmering alongside my longing for clarity. Before Lydia could answer, another series of thunderous crashes reverberated from outside, and then, amidst the chaos, a voice rang clear and firm. Stop right there. A figure emerged at the threshold, another woman, weathered but fierce, with eyes filled with wisdom and resilience. She was dressed in a rain-soaked coat, her hair plastered against her face, but the intensity in her gaze was undeniable. Enough of this nonsense. The truth needs to come out, and you know it. If you don't reveal it now, it will be your undoing. We were engulfed in uncertainty. Just as I thought we had wit enough to confront our fears, another layer of complexity unfurled between us, and For the first time, I felt the weight of an impending storm and emotional deluge threatening to drown us. Who are you? The man's voice dripped with annoyance, but trembled at the edges. I'm Patricia, she said, her voice steady. And I've come to finish what was started a long time ago. The reckoning is overdue. I looked between the two women, the support and betrayal mingling, their past lives intertwined with secrets I was desperate to uncover. I felt Clara's grip tighten on my arm, and I braced against the whirlwind of emotions, knowing this moment would define everything yet to come. What do you mean? I asked once more, my heart pounding loudly in my ears. Patricia's expression transformed, revealing a mixture of anger and sorrow. To protect Lila, we have to confront the past. Only then can we truly shield her from the dangers looming over us. The man's nervous laughter echoed in the air, a cruel counterpoint to the emotions swirling around us. Good luck, ladies. But you're playing a game you can't win. This is just the beginning. As fear and uncertainty settled into my bones, I realized we were standing on the precipice of revelation. Just when I thought there was a glimmer of hope, a shadow of doubt surfaced, pushing the boundaries of our already strained realities, and just like that, the weight of the pending storm outside intensified, swirling into a crescendo, mirroring the storm within. Truth was about to unravel, and with it, the fragile fabric of our lives. The whirlwind of chaos engulfed us, every heartbeat matching the tempest outside, as I stood rooted in disbelief. Patricia's presence felt like a quaking earthquake beneath me, unsettling everything I had once believed to be unshakable. With Lydia and Anita standing resolutely beside me, we formed an unyielding wall against the tide of darkness. The man, still pressed against the doorway, regarded us with malevolence masked as amusement. "You think this matters?" he mocked, a twisted grin curling his lips. "The more you talk about the past, the more I understand how fragile everything is. Secrets buried too deep tend to sting when unearthed." Every word struck my heart like a knife, and I could feel the edges of panic gripping my chest. Lila was still playing innocently in the other room, blissfully unaware of the shadows converging around us. "No," I said firmly, drawing strength from the women surrounding me. "The truth is not something that scares us. It is what empowers us." Clara squeezed my hand, her presence grounding me, igniting a wisp of hope through the thick fog of uncertainty. "We're here to find our strength, not let your threats tear us apart," she challenged boldly. And just like that, I felt a spark of resilience fuse itself to my very core. Patricia stepped forward, her voice calm and resolute. "You think you can rob us of our story? It's time we take back the narrative. We're not afraid of you. Let's see how brave you really are." The man replied, his confidence waning, though no sense of fear entered his eyes. "There are consequences for digging back into that past, burdens that won't just shatter what little unity you built, but collapse the whole house of cards." "Then let it collapse," I shouted, my heart racing as anger surged, mixing with an urgency I could no longer silence. "Because whatever it takes to protect Lila and the women I love, I will face it head-on." In that moment, the storm outside roared louder, grasping at the fragility of our assembled alliance, swirling around us as if nature itself responded to our desperate resolve. "You may hold the cards now," Anita stated, firm, "but we won't stand aside while you play with our lives. This ends tonight." The man scoffed at our collective courage, but faltered slightly as he met my unwavering gaze. "You think your resolve intimidates me? I've faced far worse things." At that, the door trembled once more, but this time, it burst open fully with a burst of wind, displacing the confidence he had attempted to display. Each gust howled like the skeletal fingers of buried relationships clawing to re-enter our lives. It was then that I noticed something hovering in the distance outside, figures emerging through the tumultuous storm, wreathed in shadows, but unmistakably marching forward, tightening around the edges of our fragile sanctuary. With every revelation carried on the turbulent winds, I felt the truth looming, larger truths layered between us and about to erupt. I could hear voices calling my name, names of people I had buried deep long ago, memories twisting into focus along the blur. A shiver nested in my bones, demanding attention, pulling me closer to the brink of understanding. "Look," I said abruptly, redirecting my focus to the advancing figures. "It's not just us anymore. Whatever happens next is not just our burden to carry. Those people have waited too long." From the corners of the dark, familiar silhouettes materialized, friends from years past, family members, their faces all etched with the unmistakable marks of time. It was a procession of the souls I had thought long gone, returning to stake their claim in the unfinished narrative woven between us all. The man reeled back, surprise flickering across his face for the first time. "They're coming for you," he shouted, an element of hysteria creeping into his tone. The knowledge that the moment was waning unfurled between us like an anchor for our purpose. I stepped into the fray with newfound clarity. "This is the reckoning you provoked," I said, my voice steady as I surveyed my allies. "If our past is as strong as you say it is, then let the truth bind us. We won't shy away from it any longer." The figures drew closer, revealing faces mixed with smiles and tears. Some were anguished, others radiated warmth and strength. My mother, Agnes, whom I had thought I'd lost forever, appeared, eyes fierce but softening as she approached. "You don't have to face your past alone anymore," she whispered, her voice resonating with a comforting familiarity. And in that moment, clarity struck, breaking the chains of despair I'd wrapped myself in. No matter how dark or unsettling the truths we unearthed, we would define who we are. The people who mattered most would be woven back into our stories, across generations intertwined in resilience and love. With our allies standing tall, arms linked together, a formidable circle of support, I turned my gaze back to the man, whose expression had ebbed into a mixture of bafflement and tension. "You want to play games with us? Then let's see how strong we really are together," I affirmed, my voice barely a whisper yet so saturated with resolve that it echoed. The unity of our families became a force, pooling strength like an impossibly vibrant tapestry out of the chaos. There was no longer a specter of fear. Instead, there lay a dawning hope, heart-wrenching yet beautiful. "I didn't come here to destroy. I came to bear witness," Lydia spoke, her voice steady, lifting the oppressive air, laying a clear path forward. "None of us are defined by what you've exposed. We'll reclaim our narratives on our own terms." And as the storm raged on, illuminating each face around me, I knew that we would not falter. Together, we would forge a future unbound by the pain of our past, drawing from the deepest roots of understanding and forgiveness. I stepped closer to Lila, whose laughter once again danced back into the air, weaving through the heavy tension like sparkling sunlight. The love I held for her no longer felt overshadowed by fear. It had transformed into a blazing light that would guide us through any darkness. In the end, it wasn't just my journey. It was a collective wave of healing, memories converging into a powerful embrace that finally shattered the dam holding us at bay. Each truth revealed and shared became a thread binding us in unity. As the winds howled and the thunder roared outside, I realized it was merely a backdrop, a symphony of our resilience emerging from unfathomable depths, reverberating deep within our hearts. With one final collective breath, clarity washed over me, and I softly murmured, "Together, we rise. Together, we heal our past, no longer a burden, but a testament to our love." And as that line left my lips, a warmth enveloped our hearts, a reminder that in healing and embracing our truths, we would never stand alone again.